Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our session entitled The Changing Landscape of Teaching Jobs in the World of AI. Thank you very much for coming. And we're going to be, um, well, my name is Johanna Gleason. I'm the TEL Technology Enhanced Language Learning coordinator for CATESOL. Jennie Kim is our assistant coordinator, and she is this whole panel presentation was her brainchild. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce, start things off. Go
Good
ahead, Jennie.
afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I am going to spotlight just while I'm talking. My name is Jennie Kim. I am the assistant coordinator for CATESOL's Technology Enhanced Language Learning Interest Group. Johanna and I are passionate about learning more about generative AI as a whole and learning how to integrate it into higher education classrooms responsibly. Thank you all for joining us. I will be moderating the panel discussion today, as well as go over some generative AI technology tools that language learners are using these days.
Okay, and I also want to thank our panelists, Rodrigo Gomez from Miramar College in San Diego, Kazuya Shida from University of Southern California's International Academy, Amanda Simons from San Diego College of Continuing Education, and Brent Warner from Irvine Valley College in Irvine. Today, we're going to start off with a poll. Jennie's going to share some information about generative AI language learning tools. I guess we're going to, I'll talk about the, the ground rules right now. We're going to have the panel discussion, and Jennie's going to ask the panelists a series of questions. I'm going to ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and then we should have about 30 minutes left over at the end of the session for Q&A. Feel free to write your questions in the chat as they pop into your head. I'll go ahead and take note of those, and I'll be prepared for for the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, so thanks so much, and let's go ahead and get started.
Before we start, Johanna, can you, if you have it in front of you, can you go over the agenda for today?
Yes, we're going to start with the poll. Then I can copy and paste into the chat too. Then Jennie's going to talk to us about AI language learning tools. And then we'll have the panel discussion for 20 to 30 minutes, and then Q&A at the end for another 20 to 30 minutes. Okay? Any questions about that?
So for people who are just coming in, we would like to take a short poll during this time when people were all like getting settled. This will help our interest group to be better prepared for future discussions. So let me launch that. Right away. One moment. Okay, so let me go back in there. Sorry, I lost it. Okay, I just realized that poll had to be made in this one, so I don't think I have it with me. So
why don't we ask the questions, and we can have people,
we can
unspotlight and have people do thumbs up and things like that.
We can do a poll by, let me see if I can actually make the poll right away. But okay, so let me see.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm just explaining to everybody that this CATESOL Zoom room is not something that belongs to either me or Jennie. It's hosted by the organization CATESOL, so we're not as familiar with it, and we can't log in and build things within it. Let's see. But so I wanted to remind you all that while Jennie's asking the questions and the panelists are answering, please hold your questions until the end. Like don't unmute and call out a question, but feel free to write it in the chat, and I will take notes of all of the questions. And we should have 20 to 30 minutes at the end of the session for questions. Jennie, how's that going with the poll?
I'm just gonna share it. I have
Okay,
it.
we're ready now? Great.
Let me share it here. Okay, you should see it.
Mhm.
Okay, so there are 4 questions. The first question was, how long have you taught ESL? We want to know if you're attendees who are new to all of this, or you have been teaching for a while. We wanted to get that idea.
Jenny, do you want us to write in chat?
Yeah, that would be, I
Okay.
think that's helpful, right? Yeah,
So write your answers in chat, everyone.
and then we'll have to collect it the manual way.
That's right. The old-fashioned way.
Like a
Okay.
live feed.
Lucky for us, we can still do that, you know? I think our descendants will not be able to. Okay, so I'm seeing quite a lot of people with quite a lot of experience, right? We've got people 10 to 15 years, 14 years, 21 plus, a
Okay.
couple of newbies, not very many. But yeah, for the most part, we're a pretty experienced bunch here. All right, next question.
Sorry, I got the wrong one. Oops. Okay.
And so next question is, how long have you used generative AI? Never, less than a month. Less than a year, or 1 to 2 years. So I'm gonna say I'm at 1 to 2 years myself.
Yes, actually, for me, it's less than 1 year. I'm a newbie,
Oh,
relatively.
you know, I started using it when I attended Brent's session. So I'm just at about a year, just at about 1 year. And I didn't know which one to choose, but I attended Brent's session last year in CATESOL, and that's where I learned about it. And that's what
Me too.
got
Me
it
too.
started.
So
That's what got me started. That was really
yeah.
cute, Rodrigo. What's Chat GPT? All right.
Okay.
All right. Next question.
Okay. So number 3 is, what have you used generative AI for? So sorry about that. That AI should be capital. Okay.
What have you used it for?
So it would be lesson planning, or this is multiple choice, everyone, multiple choice. Okay. And then number 4, this is the long one. So I'm just gonna put it here so everyone can read it. And when everyone is done, you can pick a choice, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4. So sorry about this, everyone. We weren't aware we couldn't send the poll to another Zoom account. So we
Yeah.
have just a document.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that a lot of people are using Chat GPT for lesson prep, a lot of lesson planning, a lot of lesson prep, a lot of, yeah, that's what I mostly use it for in terms of my work as well. And then, so we're just going to write 1, 2, 3, or 4 for the last question.
Yes.
What do we think is going to happen in the future?
Smarter one.
A smarter one,
Hmm.
a smarter future, huh? For me, that's a tough one. I feel like any of those
Are we
things.
limited to just these answers, or can
Yeah,
we
it could be
throw our own?
multiple.
If you want to type something really cool in the
I don't know
in the
how
chat,
cool it is, but I'll type it
or
in.
different, something really different, please do.
went rogue and I did 4 and 2.
Yeah, I think we're already in 4, right? That's now.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
I
Even within, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was thinking 3 for the future. This is for the future, right? I don't think it's in here, but it's for in 9 years. I think that's not in this poll, but it was supposed to be for the future in 9 years, in 10 years, 9 or 10 years. So I think that wasn't included.
I feel like it's actually kind of creating, so I'll do a little intro, but so I work in higher ed at USC, and I think there's already some fragmentation within the university itself. So for example, some programs or, departments, tend to be very pro AI and, really embrace AI. And then there's some departments that are like, AI is not really good for the students. And it really kind of depends on who's running the program and what their beliefs are about AI. I feel like that has a huge impact.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to move on, everyone, from the poll. Actually took a little bit longer because we didn't have an actual poll. We apologize for that. Johanna went over the housekeeping notes, and Johanna will be monitoring the Q&A and chat fields, or the Q&A in the chat. And I will continue on. I'm going to actually remove spotlight for everybody. Joanna, can you help me remove the spotlight? That would be great.
Of everybody?
Except for me, so that I could go on with the, yeah.
Remove the spotlights off the guest speakers, Jenny?
Yes, for now, yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, I'll let me see. I'm gonna remove spotlight. Okay, so good afternoon again, everyone. If you came in a little bit late, my name is Jennie Kim. I will be the moderator. But before we start, I do want to talk about how we came up, Johanna and I came up with this topic. We did see a need in some teachers, educators who were a little concerned about all these AI tools available and worrying about, will AI replace me? That was a question that was looming over many of us. And I think that was what sparked this topic. So let me go over some tools, language learning tools, just a few. This is not a how-to. I'm just going to share what I found that once again confirmed my a little bit of intimidation or fears of what will happen and what I'm up against in the next 5 to 10 years. I would say even 5 years. So I'm just going to go over a few things. Johanna, if you could put the link in the chat if anybody wants to look at
Yes.
the slides. And let me just share what I found. Okay, this is our bio. You can also view that. And I'm going to show you 3 things that I just want to talk about, which is one of them was Soul Machines. Soul Machines uses a concept called digital twins. So this, as you can see, animated generative AI chatbot that's kind of animated, that has a human element to it, which is still not human, but it's looking more and more human than before. And what I wanted to show you is our students, many of our students from all over the world, they speak different languages. So I wanted to look at what's happening in other countries. How are they learning? How are our students learning English? So this is a Korean YouTuber. He's an influencer. So I'm just going to show you a short clip of how his mind is blown.
Hi, I'm Digital Francis Ngano's digital twin. Francis has been training hard, and so have I, with Soul Machines biological AI. I'm also using GPT to talk with you, so be patient with me if I say something a little off. The more I talk to my friends, the better I get, so I'm pumped that you're here. Now, we can talk about how I train, what I do in my free time, who I think is the baddest, or whatever you want. Go ahead, ask me anything.
So, Francis, where are you from?
I was born and raised in Beatty, Cameroon. It's a small village, but it's my home and where my journey to becoming a fighter began.
Okay, so that's just a short clip. Some of you may know if you have children in middle school or high school right now, those children are using character AI. It's very popular right now, but now we have an actual face to it. So you can talk with somebody who's your favorite celebrity or a historical figure, and this is coming, this is what we have, and right now this is only paid. You have to pay $39 a month, but I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, this will all be more prevalent and much lower in price. You can look at the other ones, but I will go to number 2, another one. Bye. Okay, so around the world, we saw some other Farsi speaking audience. This is another YouTube influencer. They're using ChatGPT voice. If you still haven't heard of ChatGPT voice, you don't have the human element, but you do have someone talking to you who has all of those human capabilities of answering your questions in a very personal way. We'll just show you a small clip of how that works.
Practice English conversation. Absolutely, I'd be glad to help you practice English conversation.
So as you can, if you haven't noticed, that voice who says he will help him is actually not human. It's generative AI, ChatGPT, and it's actually a computer. It's a computer, yeah.
Let's start with a simple topic. How about we talk about your favorite hobby or activity? What do you enjoy doing in your free time, and why do you like it? Let's have a conversation about that. Well, I'm interested in reading books, watching movies, and sometimes playing video games. That's great. Reading, watching movies, and playing video games are all interesting hobbies. Let's dive deeper into one of these. How about we talk about your favorite book or movie? So you just mentioned let's dive deeper. What do you mean by that? What does that mean? Dive in is an idiomatic expression in English. It means to start something enthusiastically and without hesitation. When I said, let's dive deeper, I meant, let's start discussing one of your hobbies in more detail with enthusiasm. Can you tell me what dive deeper means in Persian? Sure, the phrase dive deeper in English, when translated to Persian, can be
Okay, so I actually stopped it there, but the best part of all of these generative AI language learning tools is you can start using your own home language, your first language, and it will talk back to you in your first language. So that the ChatGPT voice would have said something in Persian to answer him. And then we also have Spanish-speaking audience, videos, influencers from, I believe this is another country in a Spanish-speaking country. You can take a look at that later.
Conversation.
But let's go to number 3. Number 3.
Hola, ChatGPT.
Sorry.
Hoy quiero hablar contigo en inglés.
Okay. Let's go to number 3. Okay, so that's number 3 is the third language learning tool that I just found is low code, no code platforms. And some of you probably already know about this, but you can create your own GPTs. This is kind of hard to understand. I wish they had a better name for it, but you can create your own GPT on ChatGPT with something called a ChatGPT builder. So now it's kind of similar to building an app for your phone and building something that you think is useful for anybody. I built a English for newcomers app for my students, for my lower levels English English ESL students. So let's take a look. You can actually go in here when you get the slide, but unless you have a paid ChatGPT Plus account, you won't be able to use my GPT, but you will be able to use ChatGPT or the voice that we saw earlier. So this is an example of a GPT I just made in a few hours. So I don't need code to make this. I just need to use the ChatGPT builder and write a sentence or a prompt and keep adding the prompt and keep editing the prompt until it comes out to a GPT that I want. If this works well with my students, and if one day in the future, my students all have the free version, which is the plus version, the plus version, and it will be more prevalent for my students to use, then I can sell this to a larger audience also. So looking at this, you can also connect this with the voice and practice on your phone. So this is, I set up some perimeters for my students, my lower level students, to practice with this, and they can also use their phone to connect with this GPT. So that was just one example, I mean, 3 examples of showing you how generative AI language learning tools has evolved so much. And it's so quick that we really, Johanna and I really thought many teachers will be concerned, and it's a valid concern. But we also have to think of not just jobs, we also have to think of the whole ecosystem. I want to say, Joanna, I think we should be prepared for the changes that are to come, and we don't think it's too early to have these conversations. Okay, so let's go on. Let's continue on with the discussion. The questions will be concerning looking ahead in language teaching. And let me stop sharing. Johanna, can you add all of the, yes? Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna just take a look at the discussion topics for today. Well, the first one will be looking ahead in language teaching. The second one will be about, the second topic will be about generative AI's role. The third one will be shifts in learner expectations. So learners are the students that are learning the language. What's going to change and what they expect? We're talking about our future students, not students right now. This is all about the future. And then the fourth topic will be emergence of new roles. What kind of new faculty roles or teaching roles or administrative roles will there be in the future in our field? The last one is skills for future educators. Some of us are just starting out, some of us are maybe experienced, but if you're still going to be working in the next 5 to 10 years, what skills should we hone on? So those are some questions we will be discussing. We have chosen panelists who have utilized generative AI widely in their work since ChatGPT's launch in November 30th, 2022. They have also worked with a broad audience of educators and students in pioneering the augmentation of AI in the classroom. We'd like to give all the panelists an equal amount of time for this first question. What shifts? Okay, so the first question is, what shifts do you predict in language teaching in the next 5 years? And especially, how do you see our roles evolving within the educational landscape? So who'd like to begin? You can all unmute if you'd like.
I guess I can go first. And, of course, you guys can add. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaz, and once again, I teach at USC International Academy. So I teach mostly in the higher ed, college students, sometimes grad students. But so the question, how do I think the AI is going to, change our role? Especially in higher education, and, I'm sure maybe you guys have different experiences, but there's kind of like this, we still kind of have a very traditional way of teaching where we kind of use this banking model of knowledge where professors and instructors are kind of seen as, the knowledge, the bank of knowledge, and then students are there to receive this knowledge. So a lot of times teachers kind of end up being someone who just kind of regurgitates, for example, grammar rules and knowledge, and students just kind of, listen and take notes, and then maybe they'll practice. But I think traditionally, I feel like we're still kind of using this, this banking model of knowledge. And I personally see AI as something that is basically going to replace that kind of teaching, because, if the information in AI can be more accurate, and let's say, it's gotten to the point where, there's no errors in the kind of information it generates, then I think that, if your teaching style is simply just giving knowledge, then, that kind of skill is not really necessary anymore, I think. That's the first thought that I just thought about right now, but what do you guys think?
If I could sort of chime in on that point, I'd like to start with where education will stay the same before I sort of move on to how it'll change fundamentally. And I think a lot of the changes that do have to happen in order for us to keep education largely the same is simply using these tools to create new materials, to think of what we already have to create as far as descriptions, like project management tools, descriptions for your Canvas shell, artwork to spruce up your course design, things of that nature that will allow you to really optimize what you already have, and then devote more time in the classroom to direct classroom instruction with students, to back and forth examples, like to more real, I guess, real applications of these things that sometimes they're learning in a vacuum. This is also coming out of conversations with students who don't always see the point to what they're learning. So I think if we could optimize our material generating, or the way that we put together some of these resources, and actually use those tools emerging like AI to, hey, how can I make this resource a little more culturally responsive? Hey, how can I make this resource a little more optimized for this type of learning strategy? I think that's where I like these tools. And of course, I can predict where we will go down the road as far as like usage in the classroom. But I think I just like to sit there for a second and say, well, before I get ahead of myself, where can I just improve where I am? And I think that's a great tool for that.
And one of the questions that comes up is, you're talking about language learning, and that's a vast field, and I am one little part of it, and I maybe have some glimpses into some of the other parts of it. And I think also, like, well, what is the state of language learning today? Like, I think, we're seeing a lot of language departments shrink. And why are students taking languages? Are they taking it because they need it to transfer to a UC or a CSU? Is it because it's a college requirement? So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the question well. And I love the idea of this freeing up some space to, like, we've got Bloom's taxonomy of, like, maybe kind of going, maybe leapfrogging some of those steps, like understanding and comprehension, and getting to go up to the level of, like, the evaluation, creation, things like that. And my sincere hope is that the institution, my sincere hope, but not necessarily my expectation, is that institutions will allow that space, because I know that for me, like, I think probably my panelists are much better at this than me. Like, I left a writing class, college writing program, because I couldn't handle the workload. My brain was just so bad with it, like, that I I couldn't see myself, giving this, like, investigating and thinking about, and all of these things that AI kind of promises, but there's not necessarily the resources for.
I mean, it's still relatively new. Yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and throw the grenade in the pond, which is I think it's gonna really upheave and in many ways destroy what we understand as the TESOL field right now. I think there is and I have to be very careful when I talk about, well, I don't. I mean, we got to talk about it. We got to be realistic about it, right?
Bring it, Brett.
Yes, kind of going back to Amanda's point about, like, what is students' motivations for learning a language, right? We like to believe that students are like us and that they want to learn a language because they love the cultural aspects and they love seeing the world in different ways and all those things. And that's true for some of us. But the majority of students are actually studying language so that they can have an economic advantage and survive better in the world, right? And the vast majority of EFL students are studying years and years and years of their life so that they can send an email 2 or 3 times a year, and maybe go on a business trip once every 3 or 4 years to another country. And so they're not going to need this much work in order to do it with the stuff that AI is offering to them. So we really have to be very realistic about not what our feelings about things are, but about what students' motivation for learning is. And when we start looking at that, we're going to start to see a massive shift from the TESOL field as a huge industry worth millions and billions of dollars, whatever it's worth, right, across the world, and then really shifting it to a cottage industry, right, where it's like, hey, there are still people that are going to want to learn. There are still reasons. We'll see things like, I think about my own adult ESL program at Irvine Valley College, where people want to live in the community and survive and be able to talk to people and not have a device between them, right? There are absolutely people who are going to want those things and want to continue studying languages, but we really, have to put ourselves in a realistic mindset about what that future means, and how convenient some of these things are. I mean, I love studying languages, and I have been pulling it out I'm currently in Japan right now, and I speak pretty fluent Japanese, and I'm pulling it out all the time instead of studying, telling you, I mean, this is God's honest truth, right? Because it's like, I don't have the energy for it, or like, it's not gonna, and so as it gets better and better for me in those quick and instantaneous moments, I start to see, people who don't even have a vested interest in language learning saying, well, hold on a second, I really want to look at that as well. And what do I need out of these things? And so it can be a little bit scary, and I have good news later on as we keep talking, but it's I think we need to have a real pragmatic conversation about what this all means.
And I'm also thinking about, some of the landscape around, like what's maybe pushing students to make decisions. Like because I taught at San Diego State University for 5 years, where I was teaching undergraduate writing and general education writing, specifically for students from other countries. And I just got this sense that there was so many more little things happening that weren't the case when I was a student. And I've been taking community college classes. I notice how much my brain gets hijacked by, like, I need to see the grading canvas. I need to see the grading canvas, even though I know, like, I was taking a 1-unit yoga class where I was like thinking about that. And I'm also thinking about the sense of, like, what about, like, I'm thinking about AB 705 and AB 1705. And I'm guessing Rodrigo and Brent, like, you've seen the effects of that in ways that, and I don't know if we want to talk about what that is, but like, there's a sense of like, oh, if you don't have, like, if you need to catch up in writing skills, like, you've got to go into the transfer level course. And like, I think, like, oh my gosh, I think almost they're making AI almost inevitable if you need some more of those foundational skills.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We will go to number 2, but this is a really great start to think about what everyone is thinking. The second question is, generative AI holds the potential to automate, and some of you have mentioned that, several aspects of language teaching. And we don't think it's about replacing the teacher, but augmenting and enhancing the teacher's capabilities and freeing them to focus on areas where human interaction is irreplaceable. And as some of you have mentioned, touched upon that. Okay, so the question is, in which areas might we see it stepping in to handle tasks traditionally managed by language teachers?
So many different ways. Where do you even start?
What comes up to mind? And
well, first of all, like for me, at least in my personal situation, I use AI to really just automate tedious work that really doesn't involve a lot of creativity. So I think someone mentioned already in the chat, one is possibly, creating a worksheet, for example. An easy one would be I might use a script from a YouTube video that I want students to listen to, and I will ask the generative AI to read it, and then I will ask it I want you to create these types of questions, and just pretty much like create the worksheets for me. And of course, I will check through it and make sure that it's pedagogically sound and that, there's no errors in there because sometimes it hallucinates pretty often. So stuff like that. Sometimes I create variations of different feedback for my students. So for example, if I notice students are making certain types of, like errors in the writing style or whatever, I will create, just simple feedback, and I'll ask, generative AI to, hey, imagine this, your students, did this writing task on problem solution essay, and they seem to have X, Y, and Z problems. I want you to create 5 different feedbacks with different, potential points of errors that they could fix. And it'll just come up with a whole script, and I just copy and paste into grades and comments. So stuff like that, just stuff that I can automate. And it's given me so much more free time that I'm allowed to do other things in my life to be more productive.
If I could just kind of stem right off of that, because it really does go to my own point about curricular design. I mean, you have tools out there now like EduAid or Magic School AI or these different ones that are out there that simply allow you to automate processes that, to Kazuya's point here, are redundant, or maybe I know I could do it. I've been doing this for X number of years teaching this subject, but hey, maybe last minute, I forgot my bag. I need that assignment. I could make it up on the spot. Or hey, actually, I want to maybe take my course content, and I don't have time to differentiate the learning, but I actually want to spread this out and turn this into a lesson for children, for adolescents, for high school students, for adults. Like, great. How can I expand from what I already have? Like those tools and the base LLM model, if you know how to prompt it, can do that for you or can help you with that. So this is kind of going back to my point about how can I really use it to sharpen what I already have. And yeah, absolutely, new teaching methods are required. Like we have to teach people how to prompt this thing, that it does learn discourse patterns, that it turns out the more you do know about language and linguistics and sentences and syntax, the better you were at prompting. Now this is in a situation where now your voice can be used, and now it will recognize speech. And okay, but for a moment we had a moment of, okay, if you know the rhetoric, if you know the literacy, the base literacy, you'll be better at it. And I still maintain that I feel very confident to use AI tools because of my passion for working with language and my passion for literacy. And so I try to promote that in students. I say, look, here's me using it in this way, in a very real way, to write some reports that I don't want to write. I'm not being graded for this. I could write them myself if I wanted to, because I know the steps to take on. I could do this work. I'd be slower at it, but that's okay. It's I'm the one being assessed on whether I can complete this or not. So that doesn't go away. I just feel like it could help facilitate a lot of these minor changes that we already want to make in our classes, that we think are going to make it more exciting, or gamify my learning in some way or whatever. I think for that purpose, it can really shine.
How about Amanda or Brent?
Yeah, I can go. So I think one of the things that's actually, we've always been told to do, but have never been able to do, is to really properly differentiate learning, right? So Rodrigo's first point is like, hey, and this is one of the great things that I like to do, is like tiered level readers or something like that. So if I've got students who are struggling, I can make, just run it through there and run it a little bit easier or a little bit harder. But beyond that, you can actually do some really amazing things, which is, I do this sometimes in the demonstrations, which is you can actually pull it into a spreadsheet. So I collect information on my students every semester, right? Hey, tell me about yourself, your hobbies, what actors, actresses do you like, whatever. And then what you can do is you can pull that information from that your students gave to you, and you can use it to customize every single lesson if you wanted to, or individual content pieces to that student's needs. So if that student says, hey, my favorite actor is The Rock, and my favorite hobby is ballet, and and then the teacher knows that the student's level is Cepher B1, for example, you could pull all of those bits of information together with a click of a button. So I'm not saying like the lots of cut and paste working, right? There are tools out here that you can do this. With a click of a button, you could have it generate a story about your student who is from, San Diego, walking down the street to their ballet class and then finding out that The Rock is their teacher. And that's only customized completely. And all of these things written at their language level. And that's only for that one student. They're the only one who's going to get that individual assignment or content piece or whatever else it is. And then it can build out questions based on that content piece. Whereas the next student over is going to get a totally different thing, but they're all still studying whatever it is. Let's say we're talking about, present progressive, and they're saying, hey, we're all still studying present progressive, but each of us gets these customized stories in ways that make it relevant to us and make it something that is enjoyable for, us and taking on the student role here, right? So it makes it something that I want to engage with rather than something that I've been traditionally forced to engage with because, my teacher's weird, pizza oven hobby, and I have to read about this all the time because that's what my teacher likes. And it's like, well, okay, but I'm not interested in pizza ovens. So how do I move forward with that, right? And so this type of customization is things that we've always been told we should be doing, and there's no realistic way to do it. Now it's even faster than it was to run over to the copy machine and make 25 copies of the same old boring content script that you might have made for your students a bunch of years ago. And so I think this is a place where a lot of people are going to have great opportunities to help their students shine.
Thank you so much. I will want to move unless Amanda, you want to make a short, because I wanted to go to number 3 unless you have
I'll try to say that I have struggled to use it. My students are learning to put together their first sentences, and I prompt it with Cepher levels, with Lexile levels. I've used it to practice my language and my second languages, and it still is too complicated for me. So I'm struggling to find it. And one of the things that I think about with oh, it's saving time. As soon as management hears that, they're going to increase our workload. That's, productivity and pay gap, has been increasing drastically since the 80s. Sorry, that's it.
100% true, Amanda.
Doesn't mean you increase class sizes, people. We just can be more efficient.
Administrators, if you're in this group, you're on our side, right? You're not hearing all of this.
Okay, thank you. Those are really nuggets of wisdom. Okay, number 3. The next question is, and we are seeing all of your questions, but we love it. But we will save it to the end. Number 3, as AI becomes a staple in our learning environments, how do you think student expectations will shift in terms of learning a new language? And I think Brent had mentioned something about what it's like to learn a new language, and you yourself, and some of you have other experts may know what that feels like. It's changing. Everything is changing.
Yeah, I think this kind of ties back to the idea that, there seems to be kind of like this fragmentation, some schools or teachers adopting AI versus the teachers who are not. And when students experience, and it's just my guess, but, when students experience what learning is like, let's say using AI, like how Brent uses, or, how Rodrigo uses, they're going to compare that experience with another classroom where the teachers do not use AI, right? And I think when the experiences differences, they're going to be like, wait, why is that teacher amazing with fun, super engaging learning experience? And why is that teacher, well, let's just assume that this teacher, is not as great of a teacher engaging students. But they're going to compare experiences, right? And I think that's where it's going to create this drastic, like differences in the experience, which could harm your reputation if you're a teacher who is not utilizing, AI, for example.
I would sort of go with it seems will be my traditional answer of not changing a thing. And as far as the expectations are concerned, I like to point to my own policy in the classroom when I started using this thing at launch. Was that students would be using it, was bullet point number 1. So very much to your point, like transparency, we will be using it. Great. But then that prompting is an emerging skill that will require some training and some revision and not so easy to do. So you may actually do more work ahead of time. That was something I also told them right up front. So your prompts will require some revision. So already our focus is revision, people, getting good prompts created. Great. Point two was that it will hallucinate and it will get things wrong. And so it is your job as the student to make sure you are submitting vetted information that is clear, transparent. You can source it somewhere, you're aware of it, so you can fact check it yourself. You are responsible for any omissions or mistakes that the AI makes. That was right up there, policy number 2. And so to maintain the focus on proper citation, proper description, I mean, really the same fundamental principles that I have already been talking about in my class, but with more of a focus on, well, look, there's too much talk about plagiarism. How do we avoid that? How do we not fall into that trap? Well, enter bullet point number 3, which ended up curtailing AI in my classroom for a lot of students. I said, when you use it, and you will use it, insert the prompt, copy paste the prompt into another document. Give me your output, copy paste that into another document, or the same document to show me your conversation. I want to see your conversation, and I want that submitted along with your draft for any assignment where you use AI. And so I was being very intentional about how they could use it and how they could not use it and what is plagiarism, regardless of what tools are being used. And so when they would say things like, are you going to run our work through GPT-0? I was like, no, you can fool that machine. Forget Turnitin.com's whole focus on catching plagiarizers. I'd rather teach you how to use this thing properly, how to see it like nothing more than a tool that will assist you in some draft that ends up being available for revision in itself, because it's another draft that you can always improve upon. And so with those 3 rules in place, I feel like I didn't limit I gave them an understanding, a fundamental understanding of the tech. I showed them that the rigor, the expectations, none of that would change. If anything, like you can increase the rigor a little bit if they are available, if they meet you right where you're at and they're like, I can produce that stuff, no problem. Well, let me use the AI to amplify the rigor for you, my friend, because you can benefit from this a little more in this way. So that fundamentally, I think, is my how can I keep everything the same, but take the benefits of these tools? I feel like that's where I would sit.
It almost, I mean, yeah, Rodrigo, like, I feel like you'd already have to be a really effective teacher, right, in order to use that type of strategy, I think. Because if you don't know what you're doing, then, you know, you're not going to use AI the right way.
100%.
So
100%.
that's definitely, yeah, like as a teacher, you still need to develop, you know, pedagogically and be, you know, you got to know what you're doing.
So we're going to take one more panelists to share their ideas. I also wanted to ask to think about all of these questions of not now, not what's happening now, but more of what you think based on what's happening now, what do you think is going to happen in the future? So let's kind of think about the future. Yeah. Okay, so one more person, one more panelist, if we can add, who would like to?
Go ahead, Brent.
So for expectations shift, so the question is about how will students' expectations shifts? I think what we're going to see is students are going to, in the future, they're going to expect, well, I mean, teachers, it's going to kind of become a natural progression, kind of linking into what Rodrigo and Kaz were saying here before, is that you're going to see basically a more meta level experience of learning language, because the way that we interact with these AI things is you have to understand when it's, you know, quote unquote hallucinating, when it's making these mistakes, right? And so to be able to do that, you actually have to know quite a bit about the topic you're talking about. And so putting that expectations on students, this is where a tricky gap exists right now, but we'll start to see more of in the future, is that like, I don't know what I don't know, but I can ask the AI to tell me what I don't know at the same time, and then I can use that to start filling in my gaps. And so we're going to start to see, I think, students having it better, higher expectations, because they'll figure out how they can start asking questions that show them where their gaps of knowledge are. And this will start coming up as they're using it more and more through elementary, high school, etc. Right? And they're going, okay, this is part of the standard process. And then really having that process be like, okay, let me think about what that means. How do I ask questions about that? Then how do I figure out those things? And so they're going to be a step up from where they're coming in right now, which is oftentimes, I mean, of course, students aren't told about like what the pedagogy of their learning is, although I tell them what it is in my class. And so you can say like, hey, once you start understanding these things that you need to know in terms of how you learn, then you can start asking better questions in terms of individual points inside of your learning. And I think students will start to do that more often. I hope they will. And they'll have better access to starting that process earlier in their learning journey.
Okay, thank you so much. And this is kind of a follow-up question, but do you think students will they'll start to look for something different in their interactions with language teachers? Are they going to be looking for something else? For example, if students are learning languages, are they going to search AI for learning grammar? And then with the teachers, with their language teachers, what will they be looking for in the language teachers? Anybody?
I'll go very quickly on this one. I think the answer is they're going to be looking for an emotional connection with the teacher. Like that, they don't care about the technology. They won't care about it very much. They care about whether their teacher is trying to help them succeed. And so if you are a bit of a more distant and cold person, you're going to have less success as a teacher in the future. And I think you'll be more successful with a better SEL approach to learning.
100%. I was going to also add, one is the importance of community, because ultimately we're all human. You know, we like to socialize. We like being in a community. And if you're a teacher who is not very good at engaging students, you know, maybe not as charismatic, I feel like you're going to maybe be, you know, a little bit more unpopular teacher, maybe.
Yo, just to kind of riff on that for a second, from a personal standpoint as well. I mean, really, to be in a room full of people who are looking at a technology with a different perspective makes all the difference. I mean, I remember when I first sort of approached AI in the classroom, I was like, wait a minute, I was using 2.5 to look at some computer writing, and I even had an activity called "The Computers Are Getting Better at Writing" prior to GPT being used in my classroom. This is prior to the 2022 launch. And then 2023, we had the ASU GSV Summit 2023 here in San Diego, and I was lucky enough to go to that. And I just saw how it was being really integrated into everything, including Word documents, including every industry you can think about. And so, okay, we're not going to be able to stop this thing. We have to teach them what it is and how it works, have this sort of base literacy understanding that I think is still the fundamental thing. So trying to keep what will they use it for? Well, once they know that it's not just a tool for plagiarism, they will be taught, or they'll teach themselves to prompt it to create things for them. Like, hey, I have a test coming up on so and so language. Can you create a set of tools for me to practice from? And could they be getting that from their class? I mean, ideally they should, of course, but they can create stuff on the spot regardless. Maybe that speaks more to their interests, kind of going back to Brent's point about personalized learning and how we really should focus on that. So humanize the teaching, build community. I only felt as confident as I felt because I did find an early community of AI power users, as we like to call ourselves, power users. And it made all the difference. The ASU Summit was one place where I learned individually, but seeing what others were doing, like Brant and Kayuza and Amanda, like what you guys are doing is kind of the goal here. So as we have more of these conversations, that's the best thing to pull out of this, is that we can somehow build community and real engagement, like human engagement around this technical tool that of course we're going to disagree on. And that's great because we can have actual academic conversations and debates and bring in the students and make them a part of all of this, because I think they should be. So that's the exciting stuff. That's where I think language learning could go, and why I'm not so nervous about it. I understanding that there are precautions to take and certain risks to the profession even.
Amanda.
Yeah, and I love these answers from the other panelists, and some of the things I'm thinking about. This assumes that people do not make emotional connections with AI, which, like, since do you know about the 1960s and the Eliza effect? Like, they've noticed that since, like, you know, the 1960s, when people were interacting with a chatbot that they tried to make so stereotypically, like, like kind of therapist that no one would fall for, but people were forming emotional connections with it. One of the people who works at OpenAI like had an emotional connection with the chatbot. Like, so I hope that they're coming to their teachers for emotional connections. I hope that, but I think, you know, people can form emotional connections, and there's a way that it's slicker. It's not going to be as, you know, it's going to be always available. It's not, you can tell it, don't do that, and it won't. Like if you know, you tell your teacher, don't do that, like I think that there's going to be, you know, some rifts there. And I also like think about like, oh, what burden does that place on the emotional labor of teachers? So one of the things that I do worry about a little bit is that, like, you know, there might be some people who are really looking for this engaging experience, and then there's some who are like, shoot, I got to get this like language class checklist done. So but yeah, those are some of my thoughts with that question.
Great thoughts to ponder about. I will go to the next question. This is the fifth question, I'm sorry. Considering the impact of AI, what new roles do you foresee becoming essential in the realm of language teaching? And conversely, which roles might become less critical?
Tech support. What I say is like tech support is something you'll have to provide for your students, like is what I'm thinking of.
Much
So
more tech support.
but I want to offer, I just want to say that and then let my colleagues answer.
Can I just add on that? When you said tech support, should we assume that the IT people will already have a grand knowledge of AI literacy?
Well, I'm saying that so you're talking about, because I'm thinking about like, you know, my students, like if they don't know how to sign in to like their email, like I'm
that's
like,
okay, got it.
yeah, like, okay, how do I sign up for an AI account? Like, you know, and I realize that, you know, I think that my colleagues on the panel are coming from institutions where these aren't necessarily barriers, but Johanna and Jennie were both at the same institution where, you know, signing into Canvas is a real hurdle. And like, I'm taking a sewing class right now. And in that class, there was a student, she dropped out. I think there were a variety, or I haven't seen her lately. There's been a variety of factors, but she wasn't familiar with Canvas. She can sew fine, but like, you know, that's how the teacher disseminated information. And, you know, the teacher didn't like, it's like, oh, teaching you how to read and go through modules was something that was like, oh gosh, how do I, you know, do that? So like just kind of teaching some of that stuff is what I see as a big part of our future. But I want to sorry, I didn't mean to take so long with that, but.
No, actually, you brought up a really interesting point, because I feel like, you know, with technology and especially with AI, I think it really just kind of I feel like it just reinforces the haves and have-nots, right? It's like those with AI technology and, you know, AI literacy will just continue to expand their skills and just grow really fast, as opposed to maybe people who don't have access to technology and, you know, tech literacy. Those people will really suffer. And I think that gap is going to be even bigger than it was before. And that's something that I think we all should be aware of. You know, just because we have AI doesn't mean that everyone has access to it. And we have to be aware of that gap. And, you know, that could actually be quite negative for the society.
Yeah, if I could sort of speak on the need then that arises really is one of pedagogy and PD and professional development and teaching this base literacy to educators and students. And so how do you use it? How do you prompt it? It's the reason that we have put on the PD series here at the San Diego colleges, like 6 sessions over a few months' time, one that starts off demystifying and one that shows you advanced prompting and one that's on image generation, and then one that's on policy and etc. Because it is a widening conversation, never mind other emerging Web3 tools beyond AI that will be part of the conversation as well. And so, yeah, absolutely, curriculum specialists, individuals who are interested in bridging this gap between new technologies and pedagogies, but those of us that are interested in the humanizing part of it, where it's like real human interaction is the goal, and the tools facilitate a type of a situation. I feel like that would be the best urgent need is so sort of level 1 before we go to level 2, but let's make sure that we focus not just on the detrimental side of the technology, but what is possible, and then really give people time to play with the tech and see what they can do with it and what they want to do with it. And that requires time, which maybe we have to create opportunities for people to learn in small cohorts and stipends to get them interested. And listen, we were talking about money at the beginning of this too. That goes for educators as well as students.
I'll just jump quickly. It's kind of, I'll link my answer back to kind of the previous answer before. I think we might see, and don't hold me to this because I haven't thought it all the way through, but we might see less focus or less need for teachers to be as expert in specific zones inside of the field. So I'm a pronunciation ESL teacher, or I'm a grammar ESL teacher, whatever those things are. And again, kind of stepping back into the more of the, how are we teaching students to have critical thinking skills? And how are we teaching them to understand, the bigger level picture? So it kind of ties into my previous answer as well, but I think that I hope that we see more, there's a really easy teetering point, right? Where it's like, either I'm going to throw away all critical thinking skills and let this thing do work for on my behalf of my own thinking, versus I'm going to take over and I want to be in charge of what I'm learning and those types of things. And so we'll see a gap here, and we also might see lower enrollments in colleges because of this in the future as well. But I think that might be one place where we can start to see some changes in the language teaching classroom anyways, which is, hey, I don't necessarily have to be that as strong of an expert as I was. I probably will be because I like doing this stuff and I teach it, but the students are going to be able to pull a lot of the information quickly and easily, and ways that don't need re-explaining or multiple ways of approaching their learning. I know we have to talk the learning styles conversation, right? But however they learn, right, that whole thing. And so I think there's some really interesting changes that are maybe on the move there too.
And speaking of haves and have-nots, who gets to go to the professional development? Is it the tenured professors, or is it the adjuncts who's working? I have colleagues who work at 4 different places. Sorry, Jenny.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next question. We have a few more questions. Just 2 more questions. If we don't get to all of them, we'll decide. Okay, what skills should the next generation of language teachers be focusing on developing? So next generation, it could include some of the newbie teachers now, or think about the teachers who will be teaching in the next 5 to 20 years even. So let's think about the future. What do you think? What do you think
Is this an AI question, or is this more economic question?
Oh, this is AI. This is not AI question, but more like with AI in our future. Things will happen, right? So, Roger.
Yeah, I would say, kind of going back to my previous point, that you should start to treat AI. First of all, go play with the technology, like go and see what it can do and what it can't do. But then treat it at different levels, like request different iterations of responses, like treat it like a MA level assistant for your class and have it do a few things. And then treat it like yourself, like something that you would take on as a challenge and see how it can do. And of course, adapt your same process now for a different audience. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about with differentiated learning. But I think if you just go out there and see what it can do at the different levels that it can do it, there's just no way that you won't start to see where, okay, well, then I can automate this task and I'll spend more time on this other one. And maybe this one I don't need anymore because now I've got this tool that does this way. And so I think that would be a great first step. It's like one of my favorite teachers in the world is Miss Frizzle. She says, take chances, make mistakes, get messy. Like, absolutely, let's do that. Let's go and try things out at different degrees of mastery, as you would treat individuals within these different categories, right? You're not going to treat an MA student the way you would a BA level student. Like, okay, adapt it that way and see what's possible with the tech. That's, I think, step 1.
Anyone else?
I can speak from a more economic perspective. So as you know, I think a lot of the teachers here probably working maybe second job. I don't know, maybe.
In our audience, yes.
Yeah, most likely, right? So going back to how AI is really useful for automating and making your job a lot more efficient, getting rid of, tasks that are really not that meaningful. You can create more time for yourself, which will allow you to focus on your second job. So administrators, if
feels
you're
bleak.
listening, if you don't want us to divide our attention, please consider going back to, the merit increases, or, just go back to the salary, and just really think about what you really want for your program.
And maybe connected to that, maybe some of the skills is like organizing with your union, like working with educational policy. Like I'm still like, I know I asked this a while ago, and maybe it's not relevant, but I'm dying to hear like from Brett and Rodrigo about AB 705 and AB 1705, which may be too hard to extract from COVID, but. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next question is actually very similar to, kind of connects with that. It's how do we prepare the current generation of educators for a future that embraces generative AI? And I think many of you have touched upon how we can do that, I think, just now. So maybe it's kind of a redundant question.
I'm just gonna briefly add that, like, I think there's a lot of shame around this as well. Like, I see this stuff online where it's like, oh, you don't know how to do this, or you're not learning this fast enough, or whatever else it is. And like, I was I was posting about this yesterday as well. It's like, you're doing great. I mean, if you're in this audience right now and you're here trying to learn it, you're doing the right stuff. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? There are so many people that could have come to this, right? That, and didn't. And so if you're here, if you're actually you're already the type of person that is saying, hey, I want to figure things out, I want to look at it. It doesn't mean you have to be like the AI guru god or anything like that. It's just that you care about your students and that you are moving forward and trying to figure out what that future is going to look like. We don't all have to have that answer every day right away. It's just about little steps moving forward. And so just kind of want to re-encourage that as well.
And that is something that humans do that AI doesn't do. We are naturally curious and we like to learn.
Well, and we could also kind of take that and turn the question, right? Looking at the different ecosystems that are funding AI development, the different grant funds that are available today. Like we're talking hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars for institutions to promote AI literacy. And so the grants are out there, but how do we prepare our educators for it? Well, we got to apply for those grants, and we have to have individuals willing to carry those workshops, and people like Brent said, like you, who are actually interested in this topic. And maybe we spend a little more time demystifying what it really cannot do, and some of the misconceptions about what it can do. And we really just hit the ground with, listen, this is not the most end all be all magic tool that you imagine it to be, but it can do some pretty cool stuff. So I feel like if we started there, that's a good way of starting the conversation to go in the right direction. Obviously, having workshops on campus where you're showing your students how to cite this thing and what plagiarism is, those must continue, right? MLA and the Chicago and APA just put out citation tools for ChatGPT for the first time. So clearly they're leaning in, and students are going to be using those tools the same way they were using Purdue OWL to cite things before. So okay, let's show them how to use those tools. Let's maintain our expectations. Let's align our outcomes and our assessments. And I really just feel like continue what we are doing here, and join the conversation and bring your concerns, because those absolutely help. I mean, I take a neutral position. I'm looking pros, cons, and I'm trying to be very rhetorical while hopeful, and trying to make use of these tools. But as you can see, I hope from my in-class approach, it's more like, well, no, nothing changes. Fundamentally, nothing changes. You're still required to do these things, succeed at these goals, but now maybe there's a tool that can help streamline some part of that, maybe give you additional practice, maybe a chat bot that has all the answers in my syllabus, and it's a standalone bot that only knows those questions. And you can ask it the very mundane questions. And then, hey, when we meet in class, we can have some actual conversations about real life.
Yeah, and I love that, the grace that you're offering, Brent, to like teachers who are just, kind of figuring it out. And like, I also feel like there's a sense of like, are there teachers that like recognize like that's something that I'm I don't know, do we need to say, well, get out of the field? Like if it's something that they recognize isn't their strength or isn't something that they feel like I can teach this confidently. Like, I don't know, like I have so many weaknesses as an instructor, and I don't know if that means like, yeah, Amanda, get out of the field. Like I don't know. Like, but yeah, I thank you, Brett, for like opening it up with like that sense of like, yeah, you're where you need to be. So
Yeah, I think I mean I'm gonna say no, like like yeah, you don't have to leave the field, of course, if it's not your thing. But I think that it's not so much get out of the field, but I guess I kind of want to respond to that a little bit carefully, which is I think that eventually people will start to not be as not have as much desire to be in the field if they're not wanting to engage with the ways that their students are engaging with the language learning process, right? And so I don't know. I'm not trying to say that as a like push anyone out. That's certainly not what of course. But I think that we might see shifts in the types of people that choose to be, to teach in these settings as well. And that could be an interesting, I think it's a longer, we kind of have to wait and sort it out and see how it goes. But it's a, it's a little bit of an upsetting question. I mean, in the sense of, okay, well, what's the right thing to do here? But yeah, but that being said, I really do believe that idea that, where you are is okay and you don't have to be the best. If you show your students that you're trying with these things and that you're looking at it, they are very forgiving, right? They are like, oh, okay, you're trying to figure it out. Let me work together with you on that. And I've seen a lot of grace from students as well. Oh, Jenny, I think you're muted.
Jenny, you're muted. Are you
Yes,
talking?
I just got it. Thank you so much, panelists. We are at that time where we want to open up the Q&A, and I know Johanna has been very busy collecting all the questions. We have 15 minutes to answer some of these questions. So, Johanna, you want to take over?
Yeah, I think the first two questions actually were for you, Jenny, because you were showing us the GPT that you
okay.
built.
So
So
I'll
the
answer
question
that
is,
in the chat. I'll answer that in the chat. Why don't you ask questions to our panelists, and I'll just answer that separately to the chat.
okay, well, so these questions are all very practical, like how can you help me with my job, I think. Does anybody know of a chat bot that will help level 3 beginner students to practice job interview skills? So we're talking about fairly low level um, students. I guess they can converse, but they need job interview skills. Does anyone know of a chat bot?
Any of them,
GPT?
yeah. ChatGPT, any of them. You just need to put in it's just the prompting that you give to it, right? It's just how you ask it to create the content. So if you start making prompts and practicing with them and then making adjustments to the prompts, you can just give the prompt to the student to cut and paste in there later. They don't necessarily have to read the whole thing. So just say kind of that exact question. And then if it's not putting out the language that you like, I'd be careful about things like level 3. That has no relevance to ChatGPT. But if you said something like, this is its TOEIC score, or this is its the Cepher level, kind of more universally understood ways to describe their language skill level, then just, yeah, any of the basic chatbots would do it.
Yeah, you will get different like style responses from like a chat GPT or a Claude or a llama. But the point here is just you can send that very prompt in and say, hey, help me create a prompt where you execute the following. It will sort of, that was the meta like we talked about earlier, right? You can sort of use it to help you with the prompting and then gauge the response. Was it appropriate? No, actually, I need to contextualize that term for you. You don't know what that means. Longer, more complex, give it a role, be descriptive, use qualifiers, use constraints, like very much tell it what you want and what you don't want. Give it complex steps like 1, 2, 3, right? Do this and then do that and then do that. Like be very intentional, and you could certainly produce a cool draft.
Do you guys have
I can see.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying I can see that some people were making recommendations to one another in the chat about tools that they could try. One thing that I've noticed when I try to practice having a conversation in English with ChatGPT or Soul Machines or any of these other things, and I notice it when I try. Well, I notice it when I'm trying to be an English language student. I can't get it to simplify its language to the extent that my students would be able to
Yeah.
understand. So I think it's not right now, at least, ready for low level students. Do you guys have any thoughts about that? I can see Amanda's agreeing with me.
Yeah, that's, I think, what I said earlier, and like, you know, my experience like practicing my L2s with it, I keep having to tell it like, please speak more simply. And like, I thought also something that was kind of funny recently is like I was doing French with it and I tried to say like, oh, thank you, no, merci. And like, you know, just that by itself, it understood, like, it's like, you know, understood messy, MESSY. So my accent, I guess, is terrible, but like, you know, maybe if it'd been like more French in there, it like would have recognized, oh, you're speaking French, but you know, because probably like I'd be speaking English. I don't know.
Yeah, but I've had trouble getting it to slow down. I've had trouble getting it, like I'm always having to say, can you define what that word means? It uses complicated language, and I can't get it to stop using phrasal verbs. I'm like, seriously, you know, AI phrasal verbs are hard for non-native speakers. All
So
right,
we don't have much control over the mechanics of the output, right? So this is one that I keep struggling with too, is when I use the voice bots, so like the ChatGPT voice, or you know, the speaking option inside of Copilot or something like that, and you're actually having it talk to you, like it does not slow down or you know, pace itself so that you can understand. And also, even when you're talking back to it, like if you pause for too long in a lot of these, then it'll assume your message is done and you're ready to go. So there's a lot of these things that are clearly not built for language learners, right? And so we're kind of hacking the system from the outside and trying to say like, okay, how can I make these things work? A lot of these things that we're hoping will come are just not here yet, right? And so I think we have to, you know, it's frustrating for us, of course, because it's like, it's so cool, there's so much potential, but it's not quite there yet at the same time.
but it'll
I
get
wonder,
there. I think it'll get there, right?
I wonder if we could, this is an experiment I have not tried, so Brent or any of you, if you've tried it, I'm curious, but couldn't we create a chat bot specifically that is only capable of speaking at a certain level? Like, for example, when I created my rhet bot, I called it rhet bot because it's a rhetoric bot. And the purpose of rhet bot is to not give you any answers, but rather it only answers your questions in the form of questions that do point you to the answer. But in any case, students have tried to ask it very direct things, and it will only ever give them some rhetorical points and then guide them towards a rhetorical question that points them in the right direction. So the way that the way that I've limited the expression ability of this bot and the style of speaking that I told it to take on, couldn't we do that with different levels of English and say, okay, here's the one that's only going to spit out information in this style for this level. Here's another one that will do it at a higher level. And so we could create those and we could input the data that it's using as outputs, or maybe, in any ways, limit its ability to speak as it wants.
I mean,
yes, but it breaks. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just say that it breaks through, right? So yes, you can do those things, you can build those types of bots, and I've done them, but at some point it starts not paying attention to your original commands and it starts breaking through back into its original habits, which I think is, again, one of these things that will update in the future and will become better, but yeah, yes and no, I guess.
Great to know. I know they just added that memory feature to ChatGPT itself, and so possibly with these additions that they're making, it'll be able to be consistent throughout. But okay, for now, it's good to know that it will break.
Yeah.
Do you guys pay for subscription?
I use the
GPT
4.0, yes.
The 4.0,
yes.
okay.
I do try to use basically anything that I've used in the classroom or anything that I've tried with students. I run it through the free model, though. Like anything that I've actually tried to use is something that my students could double up with the free model and not have to go pay for anything.
One thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, I don't know how much study there has been or of like, you know, the language patterns and choices of experienced like beginning level teachers, because I'm guessing it's not as easy as like, well, this is the vocabulary set that they use, and like that's, and also like what's in its training data, not like you know, I think the language for you know, lower level English students, and like, you know, our like the students that Johanna, Jenny, and I have, are specifically immigrant and refugee students, often with, no traditional schooling. So there's a sense of, like they might not, you say, oh, let's learn it, noun. And it's like, what's that? You translate into their language. They're like, what's that? So, there's even just like, absolute beginners across, with different levels of, some of them are learning to hold a pencil for the first time. So it's, I think even just absolute beginners across different contexts can vary so much.
The next question is we're switching gears here. What language do you need to include in your syllabi related to AI, or what language do you include in your syllabi, or what should be included in your syllabi related to AI?
I answered that with the policy thing earlier, so I definitely give the mic time to my colleagues here. I just put in a policy that says you will use it, here's how, here's not, and the requirements to use it. I have a very specific example that I could show.
Right. We heard that. And
Yeah,
Brent or Kazuya? Because
yeah, I was just gonna say.
you work more with, yeah, please.
No, I was
Okay.
just gonna say, again, I think it kind of depends on the department. So for example, like I don't know, like some teachers, maybe they have more autonomy in what can be included in the syllabus. Some programs, they might not allow that. So in my case, our program is pretty like controlled in terms of like what can be on the syllabus. So unless the administrator or even the university, agrees to use AI in a classroom, then we can't really include anything besides what they want, what they say they want. So for example, in our department, actually, I think we're starting a conversation about like what's allowed in terms of using AI in a classroom. And it seems like we're kind of not as open to using it with the students. So I think it kind of depends on, again, how much autonomy you have and control over your, curriculum, I think. So it's kind of hard to say, there's no, should
Right.
you
Yeah.
not?
So
I
it's a
mean,
very
I don't know.
difficult question. I
Yeah.
think maybe that question would be better directed toward your administration.
Yeah, I'd say that's an important point of it, because some places do and don't have more or less control over it. So is it kind of bottom up or is it top down?
Mhm.
I think it's an important part of that conversation, just for your own safety, but also you can always set up standards and expectations in your class though, like Rodrigo did. I put it into my syllabus for my students when we were doing for academic writing in my class, and I said, hey, these are it's similar to kind of what Rodrigo had said as well. And then, you can also, but a lot of it also overlies, I think the bigger concerns where what this question is really coming from is the plagiarism question, right? Or and so then it's, a lot of the answers are already there inside of our syllabus as far as plagiarism or appropriate use or those types of things. It's probably worth spelling out more clearly in terms of what the AI itself means. But I would say that, you should go into that section of your syllabus, and if the plagiarism side of the conversation is a concern, that's where you would add it in. But there's a lot of interesting conversations out there if you start searching for people who are developing AI policies and syllabus policies, and there's lots of good examples online.
If I could just kind of double in for a quick second, I'll just say that even if your policy is that you don't allow it, that's transparent and the student will know. It's not a sort of guessing game of, hey, will I? Well, won't I? Do they know? I'm not sure. Well, no, we know what it is. You can't use it. Okay, right? Like, fine.
And again, the gap widens, right? Haves and have-nots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's a couple of questions in the, people entered about like, do you think, like, this is my job? Do you think it would replace me? And I have to say, I don't know. I think AI is going to be able to do just about everything except for like the being a real friend to a person kind of thing.
And even that,
Even that, people are going to feel maybe
You better
like
be really
somebody's
likable.
their friend. I want to say, so from listening to all of you guys and the things that you said, my takeaways are that we should expect our workloads to increase because administrators are going to say or
No.
think, hey, you can just
No.
get AI to do that, so
I
you
will
have more
fight.
time. Kazuya says
I
no.
will
Okay.
fight.
That
Wait,
if we want to
okay,
keep
well,
our
let's fight
jobs.
after.
Sorry, what's that, Amanda?
I was just
We'll
gonna
fight
say,
after.
I'll talk to Kazuya after this.
I mean, I hope that doesn't happen to us, but in my life, I'm 50, almost 52 years old. It just seems like they keep piling the work on more and more and more. The more you can do, the more they give you. But
Exploitation.
so another thing I would say, I think I'm hearing from you guys is that if you want to keep your job as an English language teacher, you should be charismatic and you should form good emotional connections with your students. Like you really need to show that you care about them. And, you know, I really hope and believe that all of us who are here right now are doing that anyway. You know, I think that's why we became teachers, because we care about people, right? And then the last thing I wanted to say that I feel like I heard from you guys is it's important for all of us to keep our tech skills, including our AI skills, especially current. We need to stay up to date on this stuff. Don't ignore it. Don't think it's gonna go away. Don't think I can teach without that, or you know, it's only 10 years till I retire. I don't have to do it. You know, I mean, learn about it. There were a couple of questions, you know, for example, like, is there a website you can direct me to that tells me about all the AI tools? I don't think there's a specific website that you can, you know, maybe you guys could answer that question, but yeah, is there a website you recommend, or is there some resource that you can recommend to all of our attendees today, where they can go look for tools that are going to be that they can start learning with, working with, doing the things that they want them to do? And so I'm seeing people are putting some things in chat, right?
I know
Yeah,
Rodrigo
there
has extensive
there are
list.
a lot of good tools out there. I also I write about it for TESOL International sometimes on the blog. I podcast about this stuff, and I started a website which I'd love anyone to contribute to, which is aiandesl.com. And if you have experiences, especially real practical experiences, I don't update it as much as I would like to. You know, it's more, you're adding more work on that whole conversation, but it is, you know, meant to be specifically focused towards us. And so anyways, but there's lots of great sites that just tell you like, hey, here are things that are coming out. And I think Rodrigo maybe posted one of those in there as well.
Yeah, future
Yeah, so
tools
folks,
is
look in the chat. There's some answers. Somebody was that, did I interrupt you, Rodrigo? I'm sorry.
yeah, just sharing future tools as like a base. That one just sources a lot of different content from like new tools that have just emerged, or some of the ones that are tried and true. Future tools with an S .io, and you can look for freemium or free. That's where I spend most of my time, is like looking at the free stuff. But you can check out sort of what's being developed and what people are creating with the AIs, and so that's a great tool to just go and check out. And any of the other ones, definitely Brent's newsletter, some of these that are out there that are really putting out information on a weekly, monthly, like, you know, basis. We get connected.
Yeah, you guys, it's 3 o'clock. Thank you so much for your time. I found this to be incredibly well, I learned a lot. I'm amazed at the things that you guys are doing and that you're sharing with us. And I have to say that I am going to be watching this recording myself again more slowly, because this was a lot to think about. This really was a lot of information, and I feel like I need to, you know, digest, slow down, think about some things, explore some things in my own time. And so all of you who are asking, can I get a recording? The way it works at CATESOL is we have I don't know what the person's title is, but they fix it so it goes on YouTube. So I can't send you a recording, but it will appear on YouTube, and there will be a link to the YouTube video from the CATESOL website. And that takes a little while. It doesn't happen overnight. But again, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we have colleagues in the field like you four who are willing to share, you know, who are willing to be our early adopters, test everything out for us, let us know what's good, let us know what we can do. You're doing all the work for us. We really appreciate that. And thank you for sharing your knowledge. I'm so grateful. I'm sure everybody else is too.
Yeah, thank you, Johanna and Jenny, for providing us with a platform to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Much love.
Any final thoughts from anyone?
I have to give a
Jenny?
special shout out to Dr. K, who's in the room, who gave me my first real like second language teaching like lesson when I taught through her program in China one summer. That has shaped my entire career. So thank you, Dr. K. It was great to see you in the room. I had to say something.
Where is Dr. K?
Karen Rusikoff, right down there in the
Oh,
chat.
hi, Karen.
No, and Johanna, I
I
liked your comment.
spotlighted her for everyone. That's okay, Dr. K. Thanks, Dr. K.
And Johanna, I liked your comment about, you know, taking time to digest and things like that. And I worry that sometimes with AI, we're leapfrogging things that like, you know, we benefit so much if we can just kind of like sit and let ideas marinate or like, you know, process that in our own way. So I hope everyone's finding the tools that are going to work for them and,
Yeah.
you know, thinking about their thinking.
And by the way, YouTube is also a great resource. So if you just want to, you know, learn a little bit about different types of AI, how the technology works, just go on YouTube. There's lots of content about AI. So, you know, I would start from there. Just be comfortable with the information. A good start.
All right. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time on a Friday afternoon. I'm sure you'd much rather be at the beach or something.
or Saturday morning
Um,
in Japan, right?
Oh, that's right.
That's right, everybody. Brent's in Japan, if you didn't know already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's in what is this, sabbatical?
Yeah, sabbatical, 7 a.m. So I'm ready to go back to bed after.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. And I do want everyone to know that Brent has a podcast. Kazuya has TikTok. If you want to follow him, he has 90,000. Is that right?
Total, yes.
A total
But
of-
mostly on TikTok.
I'm sorry.
Mostly on TikTok.
Mostly on TikTok. And then Rodrigo, I know you have a company or something that you're running, I think. I saw on your LinkedIn. What can you tell us more about that before? Some people, if you can leave, if you'd like to leave, you can leave, but this is just to know more about our panelists.
Yeah, I started a little Web3 learning sort of side project. It will more than likely end up turning into a DAO of some kind and invite all of you to be a part of it. So it is using blockchain technology, but it's mostly education on Web3 is the focus.
Very good. And Amanda, do you have some social media platform we can follow you on?
I don't know. Like I'm, yeah.
You
My
can
cat
make
has
How
an
dare you,
Instagram,
Amanda? How
but
dare
I
you?
know- My cat has an Instagram, but you
You're
know,
just gonna get a lot of Instagram followers now.
yeah, or my cat will. So
Okay.
You know, Brent, I typed in AI and ESL.com when I heard you say it, but I might have given the wrong address. AI and ESL is the name of your website.
AINESL.com. Yeah.
So AIINESL.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you might need to put
Okay.
the www in it. I'm not sure.
Right. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. I can't express enough gratitude to you.